As promised, today I'm gonna talk about this book right here, Uncle Tom's Cabin. See, I've noticed one thing among black folks. We call each other, Uncle Toms and this and that. We call each other these, names, and we really don't know what they mean. Like for example, a lot of us are proud to call ourselves niggas, a nigger, and then they try to explain the difference between a nigger and a nigga. But to me, a nigger and a nigger is the same thing, except one of them is a thug. And it's getting to a point now that a lot of black folks are pretty much getting sick of that. They're getting sick of being stereotyped as using those words and stuff like that, because the word nigger is an ugly word that was created as a bad insult. And it's sad that a lot of black folks don't realize that, or they don't care to realize it. But anyway, having read this book, I'm going to try to explain who Uncle Tom really was. You got to realize too that according to, in these days, most black slaves, you have to realize that in those days, the way they thought, because of their situation they were in, is totally different than what we are today. You were belittled, you were an animal. All that kind of stuff. A lot of racism is not dead. Racism never dies as long as there's two different types of people in the world. Even among black folks, there's racism, So racism will never die. It'll calm down a little bit. For the status quo and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, it'll never vanish. There's blacks is just as racist as they want to say whites are, or Asians, or Jews, and it's just a bunch of crap. But anyway, I'm gonna tell you about a little about this book and about who Uncle Tom was. Okay, this book was written by Harriet Beecher Stowe. She was like an abolitionist, and she was married to this preacher dude. Her parents were like preachers and all this kind of stuff and all that. But she wrote this book it was published in 1852. And so when it first came out, there was a bunch of copies sold. It made a lot of people, who didn't realize, they heard of slavery, but they really, they say, well, they really didn't know too much about it. Because most of the people who owned slaves, majority of them were rich. They had some dough to buy, to buy and sell slaves. And that was a very, 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 very ugly, one of the very ugly chapters in American history. But anyway, when she wrote this book, it opened up a lot of people's eyes. She compared how the northern slave owners were different than they were more kinder than the southern slave owners. But like I said, if they were more kind, the only difference between them and southern slave owners is they didn't beat the slaves as much. That's the only difference. They still had them in captivity. If they were that kind, they would have let them go. Like my family, my ancestors were on a tobacco plantation in Virginia when they were brought over here from the motherland. So anyway, let me get into this. Okay, a lot of people see Uncle Tom as like an old, gray old man, but really, according to this book, he was like he was in his 30s, probably like that, because he was a kind of a big man and all that kind of stuff. Thing was with Uncle Tom, with Harriet Beecher Stowe tried to show Uncle Tom, the slaves as honorable people and things like that, and in the situation they were in. So she tried to show Uncle Tom in a kind of a good light, despite his situation. A lot of people think Uncle Tom was a sellout. He really wasn't. There was a lot of examples in this book where there were people like for example, the book starts out that the owner of the plantation that Uncle Tom was on, he owed this guy a lot of money. So the guy came in there and he was like, he said, look, you're gonna have to give me my money or I'm taking your farm. So they made a deal. He said, he told me, he said, well, I'll tell you what, you can have Tom, and because he's a good strong man. And then the lady Eliza, she came in with her child. Now Elijah, her husband, was like real smart dude, and he made these inventions and stuff and all that, but he still was a slave. The thing is with Elijah and her husband, they were real light skinned. I mean, they were mulatto, but they were so light that they could pass. But anyway, she, you know, so they seen the boy, you know, the boy, Elijah's son came in, and they had him dancing around. And they were throwing grapes and raisins at him and all that kind of stuff. And so the guy who was owed the money by that slave, the slave owner, he said, "I'll tell you what, let me have him and his mama." And the slave owner was like, "Well," he said, "Man, I ain't gonna let you have his mama, because his mama, you know, my wife loves her to death. She works with my wife. She does everything for my wife." He said, "But I'll let you have that boy." And Eliza heard that, and she was like, "Man, fuck that. You ain't taking my kid." So she went back and told Tom. She said, Tom and his wife, you know, and so she told Tom. She was like, "Well, we getting the fuck out of here. They're not taking my child." She said, and they're gonna sell you off too. And see, the thing is with Tom, I mean, the way it was written in those days, I mean, it was, that book is over 100 years old. So you have to look at the way, you know, they seemed that she was trying to make him honorable, which nowadays would make him seem like a sellout. But he said, "Well, nah," he said, "I can't do that. I can't run away and let Massa have to lose his plantation and lose all the slaves." He was like, I mean, she said, "You can, if you want to run, you can run, but I'm not doing it." So she said, "Well, I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm going to meet my husband, because he already ran away a long time ago." So, so now, you know, if he was really a hardcore sellout, he would have went back and told that Massa that he said, "Well, Elijah's trying to run," but he didn't do that. He didn't do that. But you got to look at how Tom thought of things too. In his hierarchy, it was a slave master, the slave master's friend, himself, his wife, and his children were like last on the list. And the thing is, the way they described Tom's children, they pretty much made them look like animals and stuff like that. Like, they described them as like monkey, you know, not monkeys, but it made them like, you know, rolling around on the floor, and their hair all nappy and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, Eliza ran away, and our slave master kind of figured that Tom might have knew, and he asked him, and Tom was like, "No, he didn't say nothing." So anyway, they sold Tom. They gave Tom to that one slave owner, you know. So, and he took him, you know, and sent him, sold him to somebody down in New Orleans, down south. And a lot of this stuff too, while I'm thinking about it, a lot of this stuff took place like around in Cincinnati. I don't know, they didn't mention Dayton, but I mean, it probably was around in Dayton and all that kind of stuff too, but it was mostly around Cincinnati and Kentucky and stuff like that. But anyway, you know, he went down. They took him down south, and he was working with another guy. And this guy, he was like mean, you know, like that, picking a cotton, had him picking cotton and all this kind of stuff. So there was one lady on the plantation who she was real old, and see, although anybody who's seen 12 Years a Slave, like that one guy, I also read that book. The one slave owner who was raping, what's the girl's name? The pretty African girl. I can't think of her character's name, but how he was with his slaves, that's how this guy was. And so he had him out there, you know, picking cotton. And if you don't pick a certain amount of cotton, you'd get beat and all that kind of stuff. So this lady, she was old, and she was trying to pick it, and she really couldn't, you know, keep up with the quota. So what Tom did was he took his cotton, gave it to the older lady, so she would meet her quota, and then he went and picked double, you know, like that. And the only thing is, I mean, I realized the woman who wrote the book, she was, you know, her and her husband, she was raised in that so-called Christianity, or that. So she made Tom a really like pious man, and to his God real heavy and all this kind of stuff, because, you know, they used to brainwash the slaves, and you know, and they have them believing in their God and Jesus, their blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus, and all this kind of stuff, and said the only way you can be a human was be a Christian. But I underlined a few passages in here, and it says, well said, Eliza mournfully, I always thought that I must obey my master and mistresses, or I couldn't be a Christian. And she said that stuff around, you know, and just before she was ready to run away. And then, you know, and Uncle Tom, he used to go around, you know, he used to kind of preach and forgive people and all this, you know, that treated him like shit. So so Elijah, and she was talking to her husband George, you know, just before he ran away and just before she was going to run away. And so she told him this. She said, "What are you going to do, old George? Don't do anything wicked. If you only trust in God and try to do right, he'll deliver you. He'll deliver you." And he said, "I ain't a Christian like you, Eliza. My heart's full of bitterness. I can't trust in God. Why does he let things be so?" And of course his wife kept arguing about faith and all that shit. But he said, and then when he told her, after she said, "Well, you have to have faith. Mistress said that when all things go wrong to us, we must believe that God is doing the very best." And her husband returned, he's like, "That's easy to say for people that are sitting on their sofas and riding in their carriages, but let them be where I am. I guess it would come some harder. I wish I could be good, but my heart burns and can't be reconciled." Anyhow, so, you know, that's the thing. So anyway, you know, there was two women on when he got sold to Simon Legree. Now, the Simon Legree had these two. Now these dudes were the ones that were really sellouts. One was named Sambo, because there was a couple characters in his book named Sambo, but this Sambo and Quimbo were these two like Weasley, like little you know, like mostly little niggers. I mean, they hated each other, but they had to work together. And Simon Legree had them, you know, had them hating each other and all that. But he used them to do the stuff like, you know, beating other slaves and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and by the way, there was another character in here named what's her name? Let me see if I can find it. It was Dizzy or something like. What was it? Dizzy? I think that's what it was. But anyway, they she used that character to describe how I mean, she was like real unnaturally dark and kind of grim, you know, gremlin like or whatever, some shit, goblin, whatever they said. And they tried to show, you know, she was like 14 years old, and she had always been getting beat by her old master. And so the other master who owned Tom, you know, was supposed to be a nice master. He bought her for his wife's so-called abolitionist cousin. And he said, and it's easy for you to say that you're abolitionist and you believe in equal rights, for, you know, or not equal rights, but believe in a freedom from the slaves, and you can't stand them yourself, because his so-called abolitionist cousin-in-law, she couldn't even touch the girl. I mean, you know, to her, the girl repulsed her. I mean, she didn't want to see her as a slave, but the girl repulsed her. But anyway, he went to when he was with Simon Legree, and he was like arguing with them. You know, like Simon Legree, they tried to show him, you know, he was like really nasty, evil guy. And he was molesting the slaves and stuff. So Simon Legree got a hold of, he had his old bed wench there, and then he got a new girl that came there with Uncle Tom, and he was molesting her. So his old girlfriend, she was like, "I don't want you to go through this, what you know, what I went through. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna escape, but we're gonna have to plan this out." So they planned it out where they would hide in the attic, and because Simon Legree he had murdered somebody up there, so he was superstitious about ghosts and all that kind of bullshit. And so Uncle Tom knew about that. And to show you again, even though he knew about that, and he so-called prayed to God to forgive Simon Legree, he didn't tell that the girl where the women were. So Simon Legree knew that Tom knew where the women were, so he was just beating his ass, beating his ass, and beating his ass. And he would just tell him, I don't know, you need God and all that kind of stuff. So there was one thing if I could find it, I don't know if I didn't underline or anything like that, but yeah, I didn't underline or nothing. But he just kept on and kept on and kept on. So he finally got tired of Tom, because he hated Tom so much, because Tom was different than other slaves. I mean, he wasn't, I mean, he like helped the other slaves out and all this kind of stuff. So he had Sambo, I think it was either Sambo or Quimbo, one of those buck dancing, bebopping niggers, to beat him and beat him and beat him and beat him. And Uncle Tom kept saying, no, our God forgives you, and I'll never forget about my God, and all this kind of stuff. And they just kept, beating him and beating him and beating him. And then all of a sudden, Sambo, or was it Quimbo, one of them, he got a conscience, and he felt, pretty bad. He was like, damn, this don't feel too well, beating this man like this. I mean, he ain't been nothing but really good. I mean, he does what he's told, And so so Legree got mad, and he started, and he just started really beating him, and he ended up killing him. And he threw him in the shed. Then that son from the other plantation, who Tom used to, play with and all, well, not play with, but welcome. They were like friends, as much as a black man in those days and a white kid could be. So he was older now. He came back to get him, and then he found Tom in there, beat to death and dead. So he went and punched Simon Legree in the mouth and said, "How could you kill such a good man?" and all that. But and that pretty much ended. He took him home to his old plantation and buried him. But the thing is, I wanted to bring that up because I mean, it's a good book. You can read it. I mean, the way it was written, it's kind of the way they talk, and certain words are like old, words that, how words change over the season. Like there was a word here, I think it was it masturbate or something like that, but it meant something totally different than what it means now. But I mean, it was a pretty good book. I mean, before we start calling each other all these different names and stuff, we really need to know what these names mean. Like that Uncle Tom, that's why I told somebody, I mean, if you hadn't read the book, I mean, how can you tell Uncle Tom? Because Uncle Tom is really not the way that a lot of people think he is. So I mean, if you're gonna use a word, you need to know what it means. And another thing is, this book, even though she really didn't, the real intention was not what I'm about to say, but it also shows how this Christian sanity pretty much muddled the minds of black folks through the years. I mean, he's sitting there believing in this blonde hair, blue eyed, man that supposed to have died for him, for slaves and all this kind of stuff, and he was just mixed up. I mean, that's how a bunch of the slaves were. They was just mixed up with that Christian sanity. So I mean, like I say, I mean, you can read the book. It don't take too long. It's a good book. It's like 600 and with this one is like 670 something pages. But I mean, you can get through it. I mean, it's a good read, and I was surprised at the way it was written in those days. Now the thing is with the book, even though she was an abolitionist, I mean, she still had that mindset of the time. So I mean, she still saw the slaves and stuff as still substandard. The same like with Abe Lincoln. A lot of people think he freed the slaves and stuff. Abe Lincoln was the type. He said, I don't believe they should be slaves, but they could be free living over there, not next door. He didn't want them as his neighbors. He wanted them to be free as long as they had their asses way on the other side of the state. So I mean, it's a good book. I liked it. I mean, it took me a little while to read, but I didn't read it. I would read little, stop and read, like that. But that's all I had to say. I just hopefully somebody will watch this and kind of realize that, the use of like Uncle Tom and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it just, It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you want to call somebody a sellout or something like that, you call them a Sambo or a Quimbo, you know, call them one of them, because those dudes are the true example of a sellout. You know, you could read it or not, you know, it's no big deal. I mean, but you know, if you want to see what's going on, you want to know where the term came from and all that, there you go. So this is a longer version of Metro Airwaves, and this story today wasn't written by wasn't a J. Ramon B. thing. It was Harry Beecher Stowe. So I mean, you could even find out about Uncle Tom without even have to read the book. You go on websites and stuff. They got stuff like that. But okay, it's Metro Airway. See you next time, and thank you for watching. And my 15 viewers, thank you. My subscriber, thank you. And signing off.